Hello. Today, a story from a real audit I did. The company thought they had a 70% of drop during registration process. They already spent around 5 weeks of preparing new solutions. And after audit, I noticed that they tried to solve non-existing problem. Here is a story about this. So the company built their own funnel for registration process and panicked right away. They had entering name, address, email, and then verification of account before you can proceed to use the app. They saw quite big drop in the registration process. 62% of users dropped before they reached registration email page from address. That is a huge. So they thought, okay, we have big problem in register address page. And only 30% of users who started registration process reached final step. And only 18% of users who started registration process reached logged in state actually. So only 18% of users who started registration process actually reached the product. Can you spot the problem in the funnel right away? Before proceed, let's see what they did. They saw this funnel, they panicked. For next few weeks, they prepared solution, they prepared new designs, A/B test. Since the address page have big drop-off rate, maybe we need to change that. Maybe we need to add after completion to simplify process. Maybe we need implement GPS so users don't need to enter a lot of input fields manually. Maybe we need only one form and parse it by ourselves to understand city, street, and so on, or completely redesign of the whole registration process. And actually, they already prepared designs. They were ready to start development process and start A/B testing. And this seems obvious, right? When you see a problem in the screen, you think how to solve it. But what if the problem doesn't actually exist? Because in analytics, solving a problem that isn't real is usually more expensive than the problem you imagined. To understand what happened here, let's quickly talk about funnels. A funnel is a sequence of steps that users go through. For example, landing page, registration, payment, subscription. The key idea is progression. We are not counting actions. We are tracking users moving through a path. And because we are tracking progression, there is one very important rule. Every next step must contain either the same or fewer users than the previous step. Usually it's fewer because some people will continue, some will leave. Nobody can magically appear later in the funnel. If step 4 has more users than the step 3, something is wrong. Either the funnel definition is wrong or the implementation is wrong. There are actually two different things we often visualize. The first is event counts. How many times was a button clicked? How many searches happened? How many screens were opened? And the second is a sequential funnel. How many users progressed through a journey? For instance, if you want to analyze most used events, most used pages, that's event counts. If you want to analyze where users drop off, that's funnels. If you want to analyze how many any page or any feature is used, that's event counts. But conversion analysis, it is funnels. These answer completely different questions. Event counts tell us what happened. Funnels tell us where users drop off. Now let's go back to our chart and look at it again with that rule in mind. Do you notice anything strange? Here, a later step has more users than an earlier step. That should be impossible in a sequential funnel, and that is exactly what caught my attention during the audit. So I started digging. I reviewed the dashboard logic, the SQL, the tracking implementation, and eventually I found the issue. This was never a funnel. It was just a events count and just counting all events, how many views those pages had. Once I rebuilt it as a real funnel and separated path, the whole picture changed drastically. On the left, the previous funnel, and on the right, the funnel after I started investigation measured properly. The giant drop basically disappears. No single cliff, just a normal step-by-step drop off. And here what I looked at afterwards, separated by channels, we can see that after users decided to register, they actually finish it. Almost all users finish registration process after they decided to enter any information. And one thing why their chart was incorrect, also that register email page is displayed only for email registration path, because if you go through Apple or Google, you don't need to enter your email address. But they decided that they have a big drop off from address to register email because address page had much more page views. But that's natural that entering email address has less views because it's not displayed for all registration path. Also, we can see here some drop here and here, and this is simply because when you click on Apple or Google, some system dialog displayed for entering to Google or Apple, and then you go to the name. While for email registration process, you click the button, you see the next page right away. And only then some people continue, some not. And for Apple and Google, they cancel it on system dialog, not the next page. And who those 32% of users who dropped on the first step during registration process that I talked recently? Some part of users who never started registration process, they open page, go back right away. Some of them accidentally clicked on the button. They just wanted to log in, for instance. Some of them open email registration, see it is a registration, then go back and start through Google or Apple SSO. When I measured it as well, the whole drop off from users who actually interacted with the app from first open is less than 15%. More than 85% of users who installed the mobile app and interacted with it, they finish either registration process or they go through login if they already have an account. But more than 85% of users ended up in the logged in state. So here is the funnel, how big drop off we had during the whole registration and verification process. It shows how many users clicked on registration and ended up in the logged in state afterwards. So we see completely different picture from what the company saw in their chart and panicked about. And this is the part that matters. The dashboard screamed a 70% drop. The real drop measured properly was around 14 and a half. Those two are completely different businesses. One is all hands emergency. The other doesn't even make the roadmap. So why am I making the whole video about one chart? Because the cost isn't the chart, it's everything that happens after it. Product managers reprioritizes, designers mock solutions, engineers scope and build it, leadership debates strategy, weeks of work all triggered by a number that was wrong from the start. 3 takeaways. 1. Not every chart that looks like a funnel is a funnel. 2. Event counts and user journeys answer different questions, so keep them separate. 3. Before you propose a solution, make sure the problem is real, because sometimes the biggest job in your funnel isn't in your product, it's in your dashboard. If this saved you from chasing a ghost metric, you know what to do. I do this analytics tear downs regularly. Subscribe and I will see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.